So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So, if you're new here, please consider subscribing and do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Jaxson Khan. So Jaxson is CEO of Khan and Associates, a global advisory firm that helps innovative companies and organizations with strategy, communications, and growth. And in the community, Jaxson serves as a host of the Ask AI podcast show, a mentor with the Techstars and instructor at the product faculty. He is also an advisor to the Century Initiative and a member of the World Economic Forum. And he has accomplished all that while he's only 25 years old. So that's an amazing achievement. Congratulations on that. And with that, welcome, Jaxson. We're excited to have you on our podcast.
Thanks so much, Manuj. Great to be here.
All right, great. So you have some specific specializations in artificial intelligence. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I'm not an engineer or a machine learning scientist. I'll leave that to the super smart people. Mm-hmm. But I have worked in the last couple of years in the artificial intelligence space. I previously was at a company called Nudge AI, working on leading their marketing. And Nudge was a really interesting platform. It's designed to effectively measure all the different relationships that you have as a company by measuring thousands of different signals and millions of different points from across the internet to see what you're up to. And it's meant to help business buyers to better understand, or business to business companies better understand what their buyers are up to. Mm-hmm. So I've also been running my own podcast, so it's good to be on yours, but it's called the Ask AI podcast. Mm-hmm. And I interview a lot of different leaders from across the sector, particularly in Canada, to spotlight what we do. So yeah, very happy to be a part of this community. The other recent research that I've actually put together on artificial intelligence is in partnership with an organization called Springboard, but it's called The Ultimate Guide to Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Careers. That's a new ebook full of tons of content that's going to be published very soon.
Awesome, that's great. So what is it specifically that you do with artificial intelligence? Like, do you help companies implement it, or what is your specialty?
Yeah, right now it's mostly helping companies market and do business development around artificial intelligence solutions. I definitely do provide some advisory in terms of product market fit, competitive intelligence towards companies, especially if they're working towards building AI. But a lot of what I do is helping people who already have produced or are producing great AI solutions to make those accessible to a buyer or make those interesting. So a lot of times it's writing, a lot of times it's messaging, positioning, helping people communicate their AI solutions. Mm-hmm. And I think as well what's really interesting right now is we've got an opportunity in this space where it's growing fast, but the gap is that people sometimes don't always trust or aren't always clear as to what an artificial intelligence solution actually does. So a lot of my role is helping companies communicate that and helping organizations communicate that so they can effectively sell or bring their solutions to market.
That's great. And so artificial intelligence obviously is gaining a lot of traction, and it's it's being talked about everywhere. So what are the overall high level implications of AI in our lives?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people have compared the advent of artificial intelligence to be akin to that of electricity in terms of the impact that it's going to have on our society. So, I mean, a few examples. I mean, number one, we may find ourselves completely surrounded by AI in every part of our lives. And in some ways, in many ways, we already are. I mean, you think about what's behind many of Google's technologies, a lot of what's in mobile, a lot of what's in advertising. I mean, already people are looking at
Yeah.
thousands of different signals, have built algorithms that are constantly learning.
Yeah.
And that's really the heart of it is learning. So if we have companies, governments, services, and tools and products that actually learn from our behavior and learn from patterns, they can get far better over time and actually be highly personalized to you. Another, set of massive implications is in the healthcare sector. I mean, imagine that from a cancer diagnosis perspective or a drug creation perspective, that an AI solution can help make that happen way faster or can bring new solutions to market way faster. And there's a huge opportunity to actually help people and change really what we're all about. I mean, one other thing I would bring up is just simply what it means in terms of automation, what it means in terms of the economic implications of the workforce. It's very possible that large sections of the workforce, large sections of roles, for example, like let's say accountants or let's say lawyers, if a lot of those solutions are able to be better handled, at least at the lower levels or the mid levels, by an AI engine, there's definitely going to be a lot of changes in the workforce. So we've got a lot of things to think about in terms of what this means from a company perspective, what it means from a personal perspective and a career perspective, and also what government needs to do to help handle and mitigate the changes.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question. Like, obviously AI helps in many use cases in many industries to make things better and more efficient. But what are some of the, negative consequences that you can foresee? Like, some people talk about losing tons of jobs and, in some extreme cases, people are afraid that, AI may take over our lives and, we can, experience some sort of a matrix type of a situation where AI sort of takes over humanity. What do you think about those negative, as expectations that some people have about AI?
Yeah, I mean, I usually fall away from the naysayer or the critical perspective in terms of that it's going to be Terminator and everything's doomed. But at the same time, I am also skeptical of the huge advocates who just say everything is going to be completely different right away. I think eventually I do believe that everything is going to be dramatically changed by AI. Right now, though, I think, we often underestimate what we can do in 10 years and overestimate what's going to happen in one. So, I mean, if we think about 10 years ago, in terms of where we were and where we are now, I mean, things have dramatically changed. If you even think about Google Brain and how that's been applied to like Google Translate, for example, and how much more effective it is, it's remarkable how we can go through languages. I mean, in terms of Canada, like I like to think it's going to be there will be certainly some job loss, but overall the trend is instead going to be job change. A lot of predictions actually say that overall, because the economy is going to grow, there will be more jobs. They're just going to be different jobs. And so the task for people and companies and governments is, how do we help people move with this change? How do we help retrain people? How do we help them access new opportunities? How do we help them transition from deprecated industries or roles into ones that are in the new economy, are in an AI economy?
Yeah, for sure. I do agree with you. I mean, I've been working on AI systems for a while, and I'm blown away with what they can do. I mean, they're performing better than humans, trained humans in many cases. So, and as you said, like, it's just the beginning. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface of what these technologies can do. So that's amazing.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned Canada. Why focus on Canada? You live in Colombia, but you focus on AI implementations within Canada. So why is that?
Yeah, I mean, Canada's my home. I also think Canada is at a really critical point right now in AI and tech in general. So we think about Toronto alone. I mean, the CBRE report from 2017 said that we added more jobs. I think it was 29,000, and it was more than San Francisco, DC, and Seattle combined. I think that's remarkable in terms of how fast our tech sector is growing. In Canada, we're also the home of some of the top AI research scientists in the world, including Jeffrey Hinton, or including Yoshua Bengio, as well as the Vector Institute, which has received hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, has some of the top people in the world. We've seen companies from all around the world, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, all invest in AI-based, AI-focused research centers, often based in Toronto, Montreal. And it's really just remarkable to see the amount of investment and talent that exists in Canada right now. So I always want to have a connection to Canada because it's my home, and I won't doubt that I will live there again and in the future. And at the same time that we're seeing an AI boom in Canada, we're also seeing an increase in Canada's profile around the world. A lot of people are seeing Canada as a very stable, very good country in difficult world times, whether it's through our vibrant multiculturalism, our focus on diversity, our focus on being a peaceful nation. And so I think there's a lot to respect about Canada, and I believe that the world needs more Canada.
Yeah, that's for sure. I agree. I mean, Canada's home for me as well, so I could not agree with you more. Do you say that, do you feel that Canada is sort of at the forefront of this AI research and development? I mean, obviously, there's a huge presence in other countries as well, particularly in Silicon Valley in USA. But where do you think Canada stands in this race?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I want to be positive and say that we're absolutely leading it, but it's just not true. I mean, one thing that's concerning is our patents in the field have actually dropped over the last few years, despite it going up in the other major areas. One of these reasons is probably because major companies, especially US companies, are moving in and hiring Canadian researchers, which I suppose is good for the researchers, but I guess as a country, we're not doing a lot to protect our IP. So it's something that we need to think about is, does Canada actually own our advances in artificial intelligence? The other piece that's concerning is most recently the Ontario government under Premier Doug Ford and his cabinet have recently decided to cancel their planned investments into artificial intelligence, including into Mars and the Vector Institute. So we need to have consistent government support, and we need to expand our government support both at the provincial, federal, and also the municipal levels if we're going to continue to grow. We also need to have thoughtful conversations with our own companies and our governments about how do we maintain IP, or how do we grow built in Canada for Canada IP. And so I think there's a lot to think about in terms of, where do we really stand on the global AI race? How does Canada continue to be a leader? Because I think that we do have a chance to be a great leader, especially given that we have such a good culture of good governance as a country. And as the conversation of ethics in AI is critically important, we do have a chance. We just got to take it.
Okay, cool. And so, we have a lot of young entrepreneurs and professionals in the audience. And let's say if somebody wants to start an AI focused business, or maybe they already have an existing business and they want to incorporate AI into their business, like what are some of the key pieces of advice you will give them?
Yeah, I mean, the first piece of advice is even ask if you need AI at all. A lot of people are just like, okay, this is a wonder, miracle, drug, cure-all solution, but it's not, right? Like there's a lot of ways and times and reasons that, a simple logic-based approach is often going to be not all that you need to actually get something done. Yeah. It's actually more efficient. Having a long conversation with a friend who's a machine learning product manager at Microsoft about this recently. If you do want to get started though, I mean, honestly, from an engineering perspective, I'm not the best guy to tell you. I think one of the best ways to get involved early is to get involved in the AI community. Find an AI meetup in your city, get involved, see what people are actually doing in practice. I would also try and take a course if you haven't already. There's courses like the Deep Learning AI course offered through Coursera from Andrew Ng, who's a leader in AI. There's a course offered through Springboard, which is their AI training course. So if you don't have enough education at the top already, that's a great way to do it. If you just want to get started, just start doing some basic things. I mean, there's tons of resources and places online, whether that's like with Google's TensorFlow or starting up something with like AWS or just using any number of tools to create some basic models and get going. There's tons of free training data sets online. So I would take a look at that first, depending on what problem that you're trying to solve with your business. There's also a lot of different guides and solutions onto how can you think critically about the problem that you're trying to solve and then see if you can model some AI or try and train some data and see if it's relevant in your solution happen. A couple different other places I would suggest looking to learn more about this there's a blog called Towards Data Science, and there's another one called Machine Learning Mastery, and those both have great examples of how you can get started. There was also a great Medium post that I was reading just the other day, which was like a basic image classifier model, and those are all easy ways to get started.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. And so did I get that right that you don't have a technical background?
No, I don't. I don't have a strong technical background.
Okay. So the point I was trying to make is, to the audience is that you can get started in this high tech industry even without a lot of technical knowledge. So, what Jaxson suggested was use those resources to get an initial, education and understand the landscape, and then work your way from there, because you can always collaborate with scientists and data scientists and engineers who specialize in these fields. Is that right?
I think it's easier than ever to get started. And even if you're coming from a mostly non-technical background like me, like I don't have a degree in computer science, but there's still definitely ways to get involved in the industry and to potentially make your own models. I know many people who don't have strong technical backgrounds who are currently running AI companies. So there's no reason that you can't get started.
That's awesome. That's great. So, what are some of the implications? We talked about Canada. What about some of the emerging economies like China, India, Brazil? Well, China is not emerging economy, like they are a superpower, but some of the other developing countries. What are the implications for those countries with AI?
Yeah, I mean, they're both good and bad. I mean, for one, like take China for example, like pretty big concerns there, given that they're using AI and facial recognition to basically have a surveillance state and track thousands and millions of people, particularly of a Muslim minority, and keep them in concentration camps. So there's huge potential issues. On the other side, I mean, China has their Made in China, I believe it's 2025 initiative, which says that China wants to be the world leader in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I believe it's also like self-driving cars. I believe also space. They've basically looked at every kind of major technological area, blockchain as well, and so that they want to own it. So I think Canada and the United States and Europe. I mean, we need to ask ourselves, what is a a Chinese superpower look like if it's leading with AI? Some people even suggest that the first country to create an artificial, what they call a general intelligence, will be the ruler of the future. So definitely something to think about. I highlight China particularly there because they've made such tremendous investments in their research. I believe like it was in the billions, even potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of AI over the next decade. So definitely something to watch. In terms of India, in terms of other developing countries more generally, I mean, I think there are huge opportunities to improve society. I mean, India is the largest democracy in the world. I think there's a lot of opportunities that they can use to lift their society out of poverty. It's very possible that AI is going to allow countries like this to potentially leapfrog entire areas of the economy. Like imagine if you can just leap past with your tech companies or with your banks, huge areas of industry that had to occur in North America. But if you can just immediately jump into highly personalized, highly effective services, whether for citizens or whether for customers, I think there's huge opportunities to serve your populations.
That's great. All right. So you help companies who are looking at incorporating AI into their business stack. So how did you come up with this idea for launching your own company?
Yeah, so my goal this year was to go and spend a year living around the world, particularly in South America. So I decided that launching my own company was something that I absolutely had the skills and the experience to do. I particularly have a lot of experience in helping companies, technical companies, to communicate their visions, particularly in the subsets of AI, digital education, and financial technology. So I have a few clients. They're based around the world, whether that's in San Francisco, Toronto, or London. And I am able to work with them from here. I definitely love my business. One of the cool things that we do at Condon Associates, my team and I both commit to, spending 50% of our time working with nonprofits or working pro bono. So that's one of the things that I think that we can do. We offer premium services, which allows us to then take that extra time, take that extra money to actually put it out back into the world. And so it's a model that I'm experimenting with right now. To be clear, like we're very much still a small shop. It's often me and just a few contractors working on any one or any few projects. But having just started a few months ago, I feel good about what we're doing. I feel good about the services that we offer and the clients that we have. And I feel like we're making a big difference as well in the communities that we reside in with our pro bono work.
Yeah, that's very inspiring that you're doing some pro bono work for nonprofits. That's awesome. So how do you get your clients, the clients that you have, and how are you sort of reinventing your marketing and sales strategy to acquire more clients?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, we're a small scale startup at this point, but typically I haven't done a lot of outbound business development. I haven't done a lot of sales. Like a lot of times people have come to me or been referred to me. So there's a lot of networking. I do a lot of time on LinkedIn to build my brand. I have a lot of good work to showcase. And so I think if you do good work, I tend to think good work comes to you. So it's a self-fulfilling cycle.
I see. That's great. Great advice. So did you, you said that you have the skills to launch and run a company. Where did you acquire those skills? Were you a startup founder before this, or did you work in another startup?
Yeah, I've helped either found or been a key employee at early startups before. I've also co-founded a couple different nonprofit organizations over the years. I'd say my main experience that I've had in the last 2, 3, 4 years has been working with other startup founders quite closely, often the CEO, the CTO directly, and being able to learn from them has been fantastic. Particularly my last company, I had an excellent CEO, an excellent CTO, Paul and Steve. They'd previously helped to exit a company for $1 billion, built it up to $100 million in recurring revenue. So they really know their stuff. And so I was able to work with them very closely and help them, as well as to help learn from them quite a bit about how to actually work in this market.
That's awesome. And so when you decided to launch your own company, did you have to unlearn any lessons that you picked up while you were working with other CEOs?
Yeah, I mean, maybe sometimes. I'd say one is I think I'm worth even more than I thought I was, than I was being paid. So I definitely increased my rates, which is one I'd say to any freelancer who's worried about increasing their rates, definitely just go for it. I often talk to a lot of my female friends too in tech as well, and I think they constantly undervalue themselves. One of the things that I'm proud to be doing at Con Associates is working with some fantastic female contractors and writers, and I particularly help them to increase their rates, and that's something that I enjoy doing. Awesome. Something else I would say is like, you don't always have to worry about saying no, like even early on. Like sometimes it's just not the right client, and sometimes it's not the right fit with the client, and it's better to just test out an engagement really quickly with someone before you commit. Sometimes I think I get attached to my founders' big ideas about something, or my own big ideas, and I guess what I've been trying to do recently is, instead of just having big ideas, I've been trying to have good ideas that help people and execute on those. And if they work out well the first time, then try and grow those and make them bigger.
That's great. So you mentioned, you worked with nonprofits and you started some of your own nonprofits. So why is giving back to the society so important to you?
It's really important, Manuj, because I'm a super lucky guy. I come from a great middle-class family in Canada. I have great parents, great family. Amazing friends. I've been given every opportunity in life. There's no reason not to. I just feel like that is like, there's just no alternative.
Wow, that's great. But do you think giving your time and energy and resources back, has it contributed to your growth and to your business growth?
Oh, I'd say the most. I mean, a lot of times when you meet people in the nonprofit circles or through community work, people often say that's when you actually meet friends. That's when you meet people who become future business partners. There's a lot of like-minded people. I think that most successful people in business invariably give back to the communities that they're part of, because most people come from nothing. We also know that most entrepreneurs, most successful businesses are founded by immigrants. Immigrants traditionally and very often are people coming with not a lot. Yeah. And so I think when you come from very little, and typically that you often know what it's like, and so you do want to get back.
Yeah, well said. So you are currently in Colombia. Are you traveling, or you're volunteering there, or are you just sort of traveling around the world, as you put it earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I was traveling in particular for the last several months. Within Colombia, though, the last 2 months I've been more properly living here. I won't live here for more than 180 days a year at this point, and which for me will take me till most of the end of the year. At that point, I'll do a bit more traveling, and I'm going to decide if I want to live here more in the future, or potentially I might think about living in Africa. I might live in Europe. I'm not sure yet. I'm basically just taking this time, being 25 years old, to live around the world before I'm married, before I have kids, or before I'm more rooted.
Yeah, for sure. So are you continuing to work with your clients as you're traveling around the world? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing that people think about when you're traveling is like, oh, it has to be really fast. You're going to do everything. Well, I just change your time scale. Like for me, it's like I move here and I try and do one cool thing a day, or a couple cool things on the weekend to explore the city. But the rest of the time, I mean, I'm just living here. I'm learning Spanish. I'm volunteering. I'm being a part of the community. I'm making friends, and it just gives if you give yourself time to really explore and immerse in another culture, I think that's a way to feel closer to it, and that's a way to really travel, really live around the world.
That's great. So will you say you actually designed this life, along with your entrepreneurial setup and business and your passion for travel? Did you design it that way, or it just happened on its own?
I mean, I would say I was very intentional about wanting to find a way to live abroad while also making money and while also volunteering. That being said, in terms of how things kind of came together, I'd say a lot of that's a combination of luck, as well as putting in intentional time into building relationships. Yeah. I think a lot of times what really saves you when you're starting a business is already having relationships in place, already having networks. I've been doing work from everyone to old contacts, to old friends, to old bosses, to new people I've just randomly met along the way. And so all I can say is, if you do want to found a business in the future, you don't have to come up with the business idea right now, but what you do have to come up with now is the relationships, because those will help you so much in the future in ways you won't even be able to predict.
Awesome. That's great advice. So how do you go about building those relationships? Any strategies or tactics you use that you can share with the audience today?
Yeah, I mean, I've written about this before, and if you ever want to look about, it's an article about how to build relationships. You just search that in my name. To give you a couple quick tips, like one is make a list. Like, it sounds stupid, but I have a list of like the top kind of 20 people in my life, and then I have another list of the top 100 contacts, business contacts in my life. And I use Nudge AI, which of course, is the last company I worked at, but I genuinely believe in what Nudge does in terms of it reminds you and it nudges you to keep those relationships warm. Keeping relationships warm is one of the best things that you can do in business. It allows you to effectively like have those relationships at the ready whenever you need them. So for me, like I constantly am like looking to keep in touch. When I want to make new relationships, I find ways to provide value to people, whether that's writing an article about them or sending them links or resources or making introductions for them. It's all a cycle, definitely of giving back. And I think, I've often heard from, there's a great woman named Jill Rowley in the business to business space. And, she says, give to give, not just give to get, like give and give, because you don't even know when it's going to come back. And don't just do things transactionally, because people will appreciate it way more and it will feel a lot more, sincere, because it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. All right, let's talk about some mistakes. Have you made any, and how did you overcome them?
No, I've made no mistakes in my entire life. Yeah, I mean, I've made loads. I mean, I'd say all the time, like, some of my biggest regrets are times when, if I can be honest, I wasn't as kind with people as I should have been, or I was aggressive, or I was unempathetic. I think one of the biggest things that and I think many people, and I probably argue especially men in the world need to think about is how do we be more humble? How do we be more respectful? How do we be more empathetic? It's something that I continue to work on. I think some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life have been due to my own personal anxieties and insecurities. Yeah. So, for example, when I was coming out of school, I decided to leave a job offer that I'd actually had with a prestigious management consulting firm. And I instead joined a startup because I wanted to take a big risk. And I joined it with a big mentor of mine, someone I really respect a lot. I think he's a fantastic guy. We're still friends. What happened though was, even though we worked on it together for about a year, towards the end, like it just wasn't quite working out. Weren't seeing eye to eye, had stresses about the company, things were coming through. And I think at that time, I felt like I let him down. I felt like he let me down. It just wasn't working, right? But I think if I had taken more time, and maybe if he had taken more time, we both had come together to really figure out, where are we actually at? How do we help make this the right fit? How do we help develop each other? And sometimes I think, albeit we were both good people and just trying to get through. And sometimes it is hard. Like sometimes things just don't work out, and that's okay. The point is, how do you make sure that you still treat each other as human beings, and make sure that you're kind to each other? I think one of the regrets that I've had in my life has been, even through university and through high school, like, it could be 10 plus years ago, having a relationship with someone not go well, or having a friendship end. About New Year's, I think it was last year, I made a decision that I was going to reach out to 5 people that I had ended relationships with or ended friendships with. And, I reached out to most of those people, and most of those people eventually we've now become friends again, or have accepted apologies, and we've, kind of come to terms. And I think that kind of continuous reconciliation in your life is one of the things that's something you won't regret, because even if you can't get a friendship back, or even if it's not right, or even if you can't get a business relationship back, at least you tried, and at least you know that you've done your best to improve as a human being.
That's great. Seems like you've had a tremendous amount of growth in the past few years, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
All right, great. So now, before I let you go, can you tell us how people can reach you? Tell us about your company, your website.
Yeah, of course. My personal website is jaxsoncon.com. If I can be honest, I haven't updated in years, and I got to do that better. If you really want to find me, check out my LinkedIn, which is just Jaxson. My name is Jaxson. I should be the first result. And shoot me a message if you ever want to talk. It's also got some of my recent work on there if you are interested in working together on some proactive messaging for your technology company.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Jaxson, for being with us today. And definitely the audience got a lot of value and learned a lot about AI.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful and happy to talk today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. It will mean the world to us. And again, if you want to be notified about our new content, please consider subscribing to our channel. And now, if you are an existing or an aspiring technology entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast and sign up for free. I want to make sure more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast, and I look forward to helping you with your tech startup.